Hey, how y'all doing? This is Mongo Slay, and today we're going to talk about cultural vandalism, what some people call subverting the culture or subverting different cultural norms. So, what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about several different topics: religion, the family, sex, sexuality, masculinity and femininity, heroism, and all these different things, and how in fiction we see these things being subverted all the time. For a talk about how we do these things in real life, how we see these things in real life, we will do that in a different video. But today we're going to talk about basically, it's called cultural vandalism. That's what I call it. It is when you take things from the culture and basically spray paint your own way of thinking upon it. Similar to how a gangbanger would take an abandoned building and spray paint a 6 point star on it with, or devil horns or whatever the hell. These people would take cultural pillars like family or religion or whatever, and just decide they're going to upend it, turn it into something horrific or something horrible. So we're gonna do it in order that I was always taught as a kid how things go. You say you go with God first. So we're gonna start with religion. So in for starters, when you talk about the subversion of religion, you're usually talking about the subversion of Christianity, because of the kinds of people who are in charge, who are carrying around the spray paint. These types of people are not anti-Muslim; they are anti-Christian. So typically, any chance they get to shit on Christianity, they will take it. I'll give you just basically one example. I'll try to give you as many examples as I can as I go through this. But the number one example when it comes to religion for me is when they took Daredevil's religion. So people who don't know, Charles Soule was the writer of Daredevil previous to Chip Zdarsky, and during the 2016, 2017 years, I believe, maybe 2015 too. And Charles Soule, when he was writing Daredevil, he took Daredevil's Christianity away, essentially making Daredevil an atheist. Now, Daredevil had his Catholicism is ingrained in the character. Like part of the character's motivations is based in Catholicism. The way he reacts to the world around him is based in religion. Sort of the reason why Daredevil doesn't kill is also due to his religion. He believes in redemption. He believes that people can be redeemed. And because he believes people can be redeemed, Daredevil is sort of, he also believes in original sin, that he is a sinner. He does all these things wrong. He goes through the Catholic guilt. He goes through all that stuff. It's part of what makes him an interesting character. And they stripped all of that away. you know, they made him basically a boring legal scholar. And it's like, yeah, that's part of his character too. But part of it is he wants to, he kind of has these metaphysical questions of how can he be a good man as he jumps across these rooftops beating up random strangers, and then he comes across somebody like the Punisher, who is a almost like a Terminator, who's like a killing machine, and he sees like, okay, I'm not as bad as that guy. Like that guy's pretty bad. But you have to have a core sense of morality when you have that. And look, whether you are religious or not, you have to understand that religion does promote a core sense of morality. So once you destabilize that morality and that there is no morals anymore, then there's no reason to not do anything. That's one of the things that you have with atheism. And I'm sorry, as a person who dabbled in atheism, I'm more agnostic now. But you do have to ask the question of where do people's morals come from? That is the question. And some people would just say, oh, we get from society. But society's morals change every goddamn day. There's always something there's questions that are immoral now. Like it used to be, as long as you didn't rape anybody, you didn't physically steal something from anybody, or you didn't punch anybody in the face, you were okay. You were A-okay. But now it's in a world where we've removed God, then okay, well then it's okay to steal from certain people. It's okay to rape certain people. It's okay to beat up certain people. Okay, so when you have that, your morality changes when the society changes. But the words of God, as written, especially in the Christian Bible or in the Islamic text or the Jewish text, they don't change. You can differently interpret those words, but they don't change. And ultimately, you have to tackle with living out, being a person who accepts this religion and instead lives outside of it. But they took Daredevil's religion. They also took Nightcrawler's religion. Nightcrawler from the X-Men is also very Catholic. They took his religion. You know, so there, you have this this thing that keeps being taken away, and you have, which is the moral core of the characters. Another thing that is the moral core of the characters is your bridge from uh, and it's a spiritual thing, but your bridge to heaven is through the Father. Now, when you talk about subverting the family, the number one thing they subvert when it comes to the family is the father. Okay, they subvert the wife too. We'll get that into a minute, but the father is number one, right? Because the father in modern media is a goof, a bully. He's stupid. He's completely useless, or he's pointless, or sometimes he is not only not mentioned, he is almost as if he never existed or he never needed to exist. My number one example of this is in the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, where there is no Uncle Ben. Now, there are people who keep saying, well, Uncle Ben obviously existed. It's like, yeah, but they don't talk about him. There is no flashbacks of Uncle Ben. There's no talk at all about whether Uncle Ben exists in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Where is Uncle Ben? You know, we know that he's dead, but there's no discussion of him at all. Okay, and Uncle Ben is the one who gave Spider-Man sort of the talk that made him Spider-Man. If you know your Spider-Man history, you know that that's what took Peter Parker from being selfish to being selfless, was a conversation with his father figure, who was Uncle Ben. Uncle Ben made Spider-Man who he is. But in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there is no Uncle Ben. Now, you may like these movies as much as you want, you know, and I don't think that they're bad movies, but you have to ask the question of, why did the father figure get taken out of these movies? Why did he get taken out? Why is it that routinely you see the father figure either as a Homer Simpson, absolutely stupid, can't find his ass with both hands on a roadmap type of character, or he's a Reed Richards, I would rather do anything than to be with my wife and kids type of situation. You know, Reed Richards from the Fantastic Four. For 30 to 40 years, he's been essentially a workaholic who would rather tinker with his machines than ever do anything with his wife or do anything with his kids. And of course, that leads to his wife doing things that she shouldn't be doing in the comic books. So we'll get to that in a minute. But the Reed Richards workaholic dad is a common trope in comics and in movies and in video games and stuff like that, where dad's too busy. Dad's always too busy. If he is there, he's just too busy. Or sometimes he'll be there, but he'll be a bully. He'll be a rapist or something like that. He'll be something close to death. He won't be the sort of God on earth that he's supposed to be, or the moral center of the family, the leader of the family. He's not that. He is the scum of the family. You know, he is the person that we don't talk about. He's not around, and that basically is, of course, a mirror of our world today, where, you know, there's so many people who have kids without dads. But you have these, and you also have these ineffective fathers. Superman, in recent Superman comics, has become a completely ineffective father. Or Superman, his son was taken from him by his father and taken into space, and just took his son. And Superman was like, "Oh no, what was I supposed to do? My 10-year-old son got taken from me by my dad. Oh, how could this be? And he took my wife too." And it's like, what the hell? You're fucking Superman. You know, but it's this idea that, you know, he's just completely ineffective. He's completely ineffectual. He's completely useless. You know, that his wife and his son decided, oh, we don't need this guy. We'll go into space on our own with this other stranger, who is still a stranger. We'll go into space with him. And then he also turned Superman's dad into a villain, you know, which is whatever, dog. You know, Jor-El was supposed to be sort of the guy who put Superman on the right path and sent him to Earth so that he could be sort of a savior, or to save his life, or whatever the case may be, however you want to massage that canon. But in modern DC Comics, Jor-El is a villain who murdered a whole bunch of human beings with his eye lasers. So you disrupted that family. Why? Whatever. You know, like, it kind of is what it is. But I could go on and on and on about subverting the father. Black Bolt from the Inhumans. He abandoned his family for years and years and years. Then he turns back up, and his wife beat him up because he disappeared for years. And they did a thing where after his wife beat him up, he voluntarily, he was the king of the Inhumans. He voluntarily left the throne. I'm out of here. I don't have to deal with this. I'll leave. And it's like, what? It doesn't work that way. Like Medusa was only the queen because you're the king. You're the king by birth. And he just kind of says, I'm out of here. And he goes to run a club. ... The king of an entire race of people left to run a nightclub. That's it. That goes to show you how people treat fathers in the media, and especially in comic books now, where fathers are god awful. They're terrible. Another father that they've ruined was Odin. Odin, of course, is the father of Thor. Under the Jason Aaron banner of Thor, Odin became an absolute bully. He was a sexist. He was now in some scriptures or something like that. Odin might have been a little weird when it comes to sex, but they had Odin in Marvel Comics actually be afraid of a villain, and he was hiding in his throne room while his wife went out to fight the villain and almost got killed. So you had all these people who are getting slaughtered around Odin, who is the most powerful person in Asgard, by the way, still. The most powerful person in Asgard. Well, technically no, because they had the Lady Thor at the time, and I guess she was the most powerful person in Asgard, whatever the case may be. But Odin, it was still supposed to be Odin, but he was turned into this ineffective, ineffectual, cowardly. Most times he was a coward in this situation. He was a bully in every other situation because he was stronger than everybody else, and that was essentially Thor's dad. Thor's dad was a bully and a sexist who didn't like that Thor was a woman. Well, of course, nobody did, but that's not the point. So you had that. So when you have the father is either a Homer Simpson type, or who is a fat loser, somebody who just can't get right. You see that in all these commercials where you have the guys. He's just an absolute goof. He's a stupid man. Like he can't, how did he learn how to do anything? How did he put anything together? He's a fool. He's a coward. He's a bully. Captain America's dad was turned into an Irish drunk who beat his mom and him, but what they did to Captain America is absolutely embarrassing. We'll get to that later though. But they turned Captain America's dad into an abusive drunk. They turned various other superheroes' dads into abusive drunks or rapists, or they turned Captain Marvel's dad into a sexist. It's like they do things like that all the time. And it also always turns into subverting the mom. So subverting the mom, Sue Richards is the number one that I think of. I already talked about Medusa. Now, Medusa of the Inhumans, she's not that important, but she is a mother, and she's somebody that we could talk about later. But Sue Richards of the Fantastic Four is the mom figure. And Sue Richards, because she's always being ignored by her husband, is constantly flirting with T'Challa, the Black Panther, and also flirting with Namor under the sea, constantly flirting with these people all the time because she's so lonely because her husband don't spend time with her. And it's like you continually justify these women going out and doing whatever they want. And they did the same thing with Queen Medusa from the Inhumans. They had her have sex with Johnny Storm while Black Bolt was away. She was having sex with Johnny Storm. Then she had, who was her sister's ex-boyfriend, by the way. They just turned that into a whole disgusting ordeal. Jean Grey, who was the wife of Cyclops. They keep doing these. They created this polyamorous relationship between Jean Grey and Wolverine and Cyclops, when it's really a love triangle where Wolverine was trying to steal Scott Summers' wife. Instead of it turned into this polyamorous thing where it seems like everybody knows who's banging everybody because X-Men doesn't matter anymore. Look, X-Men is a dead franchise. For people who think that, you holding out some hope that X-Men is going to be okay, no, X-Men is absolutely paused. It's over. It's done. Okay, X-Men is finished. I'll never read another X-Men comic book. But they've done this over and over again with the wife, where they'll turn the wife into a cheater. She's a liar. She's a manipulator. Or they'll turn her into the paragon of virtue, where she's the woe is me put upon wife who has to deal with this big lug who won't do anything, who won't have sex with her, who won't go out with her, who abuses her and the kids or whatever the hell. right? She is just the paragon of virtue. And much like what I was talking about with Uncle Ben missing, you don't lose anything when the man leaves. When the man leaves, I mean, that's a trope in literature and in fiction, is that sometimes a character is triggered by the death of their dad, who is supposedly like the death of the hero. You know, where your dad is supposed to be your hero, and when he's gone, you sort of live as he envisioned, and hopefully you're old enough to have some type of memories of his, you know, of him, or of his teachings that you can live with and live by. You know, like Superman did. Like Superman had discs where he could talk to his real father. He had an Earth father too, you know, who kept him on the right path. But Jor-El was the one who sent him these messages across time and space to teach him different things about being Kryptonian, about being who he is, and all these types of things. They completely destroy and subvert these things in the media, and they do these things with the mothers too, you know. But usually they have a more of a track record of turning the mother into a paragon of virtue, who is poor and put upon, and woe is me, and then she overcomes because she can do everything and she knows everything and she's so smart, and they just shit on the man. They also do a lot of this stuff with the kids too. Is they turn the kids into brats. They turn the kids into know-it-alls. You know, I can't use a fictional example because I can't think of one right now. But I guess the probably the best example would be in Marvel Comics, where you have the champions, where the champions are all these superheroes that are under the age of 18, and yet they're constantly preaching to the Avengers, who are like the older, more established heroes. So they're like constantly preaching to the Avengers that they should care about all of these new social justice messages and all this type of stuff. And the Avengers are like, dude, we fight aliens. Like, bro, we stop meteors from destroying the planet. We don't have time for whatever the hell you talking about. Like, you talking about saving the environment or whatever the hell. Like, yeah, we saved the environment from Kang the fucking Conqueror, you know, who's trying to reverse time and, you know, all this type of stuff. Like, we don't have time for this shit. But they do that to kids all the time. They turn kids into brats, you know, kids into know-it-alls. They do it in real life too. But part 2 of this video is going to be about how they subvert children in real life, and that's actually a far worse thing. That cuties stuff that they have with Netflix now, that's another thing with subverting children. They turn children into propaganda pieces. You know, they said, oh, this is about subverting sexuality, and they talk about, you know, in the video there's a girl taking a picture of her vagina, and it's like, no, 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 no. What the fuck? That's the vision of these people when it comes to children. I don't know any children who do that. I never knew any children who went to that extent of thinking, you know, of going across that boundary. You know, it's like children are not treated like children. They act like small adults, and they don't have the life experience or the experience to understand why the world is the way it is. And it's almost like the Jordan Peterson thing, where he says, like, if you want to fix something, you need to know how it works first. You know, and I forget, I think it might have been in the book Dune, where one of the characters says that you don't understand a process by stopping it. That, you know, you have children who are taught to stop this process. They don't know how it works. They don't know what to do. And, you know, but they want to stop it. And it's like, you never learn how it works by stopping it. That's a Dune quote. But I think that's pretty cool. And it's actually very useful. So they subvert the family, you know, mother, husband, children. They also subvert heroism in general. So anybody who's considered a paragon of virtue is considered a horrible human being in our modern world. Number one, most people know this is if you've seen The Watchmen. So if you've seen The Watchmen, you'll know that almost all of the Watchmen are supposed to be superheroes, but if you scratch the surface even a little bit on each one of them, they're a terrible person. Number one in this is the comedian. The comedian is almost always considered a war hero, but the comedian is a rapist. He murdered a pregnant woman. He, you know, enjoys gunning down protesters. He is a horrible, horrible person. And the entire book is about trying to find out who killed this horrible person. You know, Rorschach is supposed to be the villain because he has a binary based on Ayn Rand, a binary thinking of you're either good or you're evil. But Rorschach ends up being the person who doesn't really do anything wrong. Like, he's abrasive as far as his personality is concerned. He kills people, but he only kills bad guys. And he's considered to be evil by people who read the book. It's like, that's weird. He's not evil. Rorschach is perfectly fine. You have this Dr. Manhattan who, much like Reed Richards, is an egghead, is an impotent egghead who abandons his wife because he would rather sit on the moon and do nothing and just stare at the metaphysical space of the moon and look into the past and look into the future. And, he's detached from the world. He's not a hero. He's detached from reality. He could crush anything with his mind or whatever, but he would rather not do it. He's just nothing. And you have Night Owl, who literally is impotent, because in one scene he's trying to fuck Dr. Manhattan's girlfriend, and he can't even get it up because he's so scared of if Dr. Manhattan found out he's gonna kill him, so he can't even get hard. It's horrible. Watchmen, like, I love the Watchmen because I like the way it's written and it's a good story, but it set the template for a lot of really bad storytelling, like The Boys. The Boys is another one. I have not watched the TV show. I've only read one issue of the comic book, but The Boys is shit. Okay, it's everybody who has superhero who has superpowers is careless or callous or horrible. Like, in the first issue of The Boys, which I got for free, one superhero murders a guy's fiance completely by accident. He like threw a villain into her and she died, and he didn't care. He was just kind of like, oh well, I got insurance or something like that. Well, it was kind of like, oh, it was no big deal. It's just a woman, and he took off. He's supposed to be the hero, and he just kind of takes off. Like, it could have been interesting, like where this guy, destroyed this man's life by accident, and now he kind of has to do a redemption story. But, they turn heroes into the most evil people in the world. Jupiter's Legacy, which is written by Mark Miller, is another one where the superheroes, half the superhero community, well, not even half, probably more than half, kill the other half of the superhero community and then take over the planet. And, it's like, what is going on here where all of the heroes are bad guys, or they're secretly bad guys, or they have their own agendas and all this type of stuff. And that becomes heroism doesn't matter. This is where you get bad guys, cops with capes. That Time magazine article that I read to you guys a couple of months ago. You get that idea that heroes aren't paragons of virtue. They don't stand for something. They have no morals. They're just like the average flawed guy down the street. And people buy it. People eat that shit up. There are no paragons of virtue. There are no nice guys. There are no heroes. And if they are, they're impotent. They're scary. They're weak. And, but it is what it is. So after you have done that, you've gotten rid of the heroes. You've gotten rid of the dads, the moms. You've gotten rid of religion. What do you have to get rid of next? Well, next thing you get rid of is the sex, right? You make free love the argument. And along the lines of subverting the family, you just get subverting sex. Sex doesn't matter anymore. You have, and especially in comic books, where you have characters just having sex with just about anybody with no sort of connection, just characters kissing random people, having sex with random people. And it's like, okay, whatever. Even in a James Bond novel, they take the time to, James Bond has like one woman per book or whatever. And the Bond girl, where it seems like he wants to be with, like I read You Only Die Twice or something like that. And he seemed like he wanted to really be with Kissy. Like he really wanted to be with her. But then he got fucking amnesia. And, it was out of his control. But, the hero typically had, like Tarzan had Jane. There was always a hero and a heroine, or at least a hero and his girl. But now there has to be, and I know it's kind of strange that I'm, as a man, saying that, oh, you need to be sharing monogamy and not having guys sleep with a bunch of different women. But but when you do that, you also flip it. You start having women having a bunch of different boyfriends and have a bunch of different men. So once you subvert that, then it becomes fair game for everybody to do it. And then you can't teach people how to build relationships when that's your goal, is that anybody should be having sex with anybody and everybody should be having sex with everybody. That doesn't make sense. And then from there, once you subvert the sex and sex doesn't mean anything, then you start subverting sexuality. And this is where you start getting now characters are being turned bisexual. The X-Men, like I said, is paused. You had Kitty Pryde just came out, and they said Kitty Pryde was the bisexual, and which bisexual for the LGBT just means she's gay. Harley Quinn is another one. Poison Ivy was another one. Neither one of those characters were gay until out of nowhere people decided they were hooking up together, and now both of them are essentially gay. You know, after years, I mean, Harley Quinn especially was created for the intense purpose of being the mate for the Joker. Like how she managed. Well, I get that characters grow over time, but I mean, whatever. I'm not going to get too far into the woods on that whole thing. But and of course, Iceman was turned to being gay. Iceman, who had 40 years of straight heterosexuality, all of a sudden was gay, and now is not just gay, but gay pride dancing down the street gay. It's absolutely disturbing that people consider that to be a win. When again, that's just vandalism. It's just, we're just going around tagging buildings. Iceman, he's one of ours. Kitty Pryde is one of ours. Harley Quinn is one of ours. That's our stuff. We're marking our stuff. And that just can't kind of is a thing that they keep doing, where they'll just keep turning. It's like, and especially in Marvel, there's a plethora of lesbian characters in Marvel now. There's more lesbians in Marvel, I think, than heterosexual characters, and I mean that. I'm pretty sure there's like every other character in Marvel is gay. Well, especially the women, not the men, but the women. They've turned a lot of women gay in Marvel. Now, this particular piece is not going to be about. It's not about characters that were created to be homosexual, like Batwoman. Like Batwoman was already heterosexual, I mean homosexual. They didn't flip. They didn't need to flip her. They already had it. But Wonder Woman is a character that they've been trying to flip for years, because, well, Wonder Woman comes from an island of all women. So, of course, all of her first lovers and stuff had to be women. And it's like, how did you have all these women? Where did all these women come from? Or were they born from, I was about to say eggs. So of course they had eggs, but how did they fertilize these eggs? Where did all these women on Themyscira come from? It had to be men somewhere, so but it is a cultural thing where that doesn't need to make sense. It just needs to be something that they can take home and say, we won this argument, we won this battle. We turned Wonder Woman into a homosexual. And of course, with that, also you come to alternative lifestyles. And the alternative lifestyle, like I said, is polyamory and stuff like that. So then sex and sexuality, once that's gone, now you have to subvert your masculinity and femininity. They subvert masculinity in some very important ways. One of the ways they subvert masculinity is by creating phallic women. And by phallic women, what I mean is by women who are weapons experts. Now, yes, Black Widow is a woman who uses weapons, but Black Widow was always created as sort of a femme fatale, she lures you in with her sexuality, but she's, once you drop your guard, she can hit your pressure points and like poke your eyeballs out, or she'll shoot you in the chest or something like that if it came down to it. But like her standing in the middle of the ring, like the octagon, fighting like some 6'8" guy, that stuff is fairly new in the Batwoman, not the Batwoman, but in the Black Widow canon of her being able to just beat up any man. That's pretty new. But my conception of a phallic woman goes back to, again, Wonder Woman. There was it's a YouTuber called Professor Geek. He's a really smart guy, college professor, all that type of stuff. He knows a lot about DC Comics. And he's the one who does like a lecture on Wonder Woman. And he says like Wonder Woman is an ambassador. Like when you see the original creations of Wonder Woman, she doesn't carry weapons. She doesn't carry a shield. She doesn't carry a sword. Because she's an ambassador of love and justice and peace. That's why she has the lasso. And the lasso is the lasso of truth, where, she wraps you in this lasso and you're forced to tell the truth. She is not there to be a Spartan, which is what she is now. Like every comic book that has Wonder Woman on the cover now has Wonder Woman with a sword. And the reason why they have that is because, you have the Freudian concept of penis envy, right? Like all the women need to have weapons and need to be sword masters or need to have guns and all this type of stuff because the men have them. So now you have this, there's no difference between men and women. Like everything that a man can do, a woman can do. This leads you to Thor, right? So people who don't know, Thor is Thor, Thor Odinson. But what they did was in Marvel Comics in recent memory, like starting like 2014, maybe 2015, maybe even earlier, is what they did. They turned Thor, his name, into a title like captain or sergeant. Like anybody could be a captain or a sergeant in the military. So what they said is essentially if you pick up the Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, then you are Thor. You know, that is now your name is Thor. So they had Jane Foster, who was the ex-girlfriend of Thor, find the way to the moon somehow and pick up the hammer of Thor. And then she became Thor, right? So she didn't turn into a man. She just became like girl Thor. But the entire comic book was basically her trying to enforce the fact that she was Thor and a better Thor than Thor, right? Like I'm the best Thor, right? But like Mjolnir became a phallic symbol. It became a symbol of Thor's penis and his balls and everything. Because then once she took his hammer, Thor became all sullen and, oh man, woe is me. I'm not worthy. What am I supposed to do? Now he was still a badass, of course, but he was mostly drinking and chilling and being bitter and being angry that this woman's walking around with Mjolnir. And she was, oh, I'm so sorry, Thor, that I'm so much better than you. I didn't mean to. I'm so sorry. I have to apologize for being so powerful and so much better than you. I have to apologize every issue that, oh yeah, I'm so sorry. I didn't want to embarrass you in front of your friends. I'm a better Thor than you are, but I didn't want to embarrass you in front of your friends. So that's why I didn't tell you. You know, I think they went most of the goddamn run without him even knowing who the girl Thor was or having the ability to find out. And this, of course, turned into why Odin was being a bully and being a coward. And she was beating up Odin, by the way. So you had Lady Thor beating up Odin. But you'll also just have women taking on masculine qualities. Like they will start drawing female characters in a more masculine way. They would, shrink their breasts. They did this to Captain Marvel. They did it to Kitty Pryde. They did it to the various women in the Inhumans. They did it to almost all of the women in DC and Marvel have just had no sex appeal at all. They basically have man chest. Okay, they're flat. They have no curves. Like it's starting to come back with like Black Cat and Wonder Woman. I mean, not Black Cat and Wonder Woman, but Black Cat and Catwoman. But most of the fighting females or whatever, like they have no female frame to them. They're all just men. Okay, that's why they, you had your boy Zach or whatever. They started calling Captain Marvel Carl Manvers. You know, because it's essentially like she's like this big muscular dude. She looked like John Cena. You know, and she did. Like she has like a really strong jaw. She doesn't even have a feminine face anymore. And then they would do things like chopping their hair off. And in a vacuum, these things are not that important, right? In a vacuum, cutting a female's hair is not that big of a deal. But when you add it up to you're chopping her hair off, you're getting rid of her breasts, you're bulking up her arms, okay, you're not just changing how she looked. Like you could have cut her hair and she still could have been female. Coded female, I mean, by, hips, even if she's not going to have big bazunga breasts like she used to have, but she still got breasts. She's still, rosy lipped and everything, like she still looks female. But Captain Marvel especially, they basically just turned her into a flying man. She became a flying brick. Okay, that's what she became. And that's why a lot of people, when they get mad about Captain Marvel, that's usually what it's about. Because Captain Marvel has zero, she is not coded female at all. And to flip side of that, you started having the men become impotent and weak. As I just talked about, this was all about subverting the father. They did it to Batman, where Batman became almost completely dependent on Catwoman. And, during the whole Tom King run of Batman, Catwoman had to she's basically, I hate to to repeat what other people have said, but she was indeed a mommy wife, where she was basically a comfort pillow for Batman, who all he did was talk about his own impotence and how he failed and how he couldn't succeed. And then even in fights, she would have to save him. And he wasn't masculine at all. He had no masculine features. Like he had muscles, sure. He had a strong looking jaw, sure. But when you talk about how they drew him, how they wrote his depiction, like I just said with Superman, where he was sort of like, had all these muscles and all this, he's big and stocky. He had all these muscles for no reason, because he was always written to be a coward. They did it to Colossus in the X-Men, where they took Colossus's powers. Colossus, of course, is the big guy who turns into metal in the X-Men. They took his powers from him, and then they had him. Now, even though they took Colossus's powers from him, he's still like a 6'6", gigantic, muscly Russian, right? Like he's the metal enhances what he already is. Like he's already a 6'6" juggernaut, not the actual juggernaut, which is a villain, but a 6'6". If you've seen him in a dark alley, he looks like a pro wrestler kind of guy. Now, when they took his power, all of a sudden he was hiding behind 5'8" Kitty Pryde. Like, oh my God, I don't know what to do anymore. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're a giant Russian. Even if you're not a giant Russian that can turn into a metal monster anymore, you're still a giant fucking Russian. Why the hell are you hiding behind this woman? But that's the way they write men now. That's masculinity in today's world. They did it with Conan the Barbarian too, where they would have stories where Conan couldn't defeat the enemy, and then his grandma showed up to help them, or various other women would show up and help him. I have a couple of those where you have Conan who can slay demons and chop off the heads of hydras, and all of a sudden in these Marvel comic books, Conan can't beat a team of villains by himself. He needed the help of all of these whores. And I'm not saying they whores because they're women. I'm saying they whores because they were fucking whores. They were just like working girls, you know. Now again, when I talk about women being combatants and things like that, Red Sonja is different because Red Sonja is supposed to be like the female companion to Conan the Barbarian. She was created to be a barbarian, a soldier. She is masculinized but still feminine. So she still has hips, breasts, and all that type of stuff. But she is a hard drinking woman who loves to fight and all that type of stuff. So she's masculinized in certain ways, but still looking feminine. And they did the same thing with She-Hulk, where She-Hulk was supposed to be like this slender, feminine, strong, completely different, fun, outgoing version of the Hulk, of She-Hulk, of, Jennifer Walters. And over the years, they decided that She-Hulk was too sexy. So they basically just turned her into Girl Hulk. So now she's big, broad shoulders, broad arms, broad thighs, like Hulk smash, boom. That was never what Jennifer Walters was supposed to be. That's not what she was created to be. She was created to be sort of the outgoing personality of Jennifer Walters. But now she is essentially the Hulk because somebody had penis envy and thought, oh, why do she have to be sexy and sweet and all this type of stuff? So why can't she just be the Hulk monster? It's like, but you already have a Hulk monster. And it's supposed to be a curse, not a gift. It's not something that you want. Like that's the point of the Hulk. The Bruce Banner doesn't want to be the Hulk. The Bruce Banner hates the Hulk. And the Hulk hates him. But somebody didn't. You don't understand these characters, and you're just tagging them. You're just spray painting your logo on them because you want to just spray paint LGBT or Black Lives Matter all over the goddamn characters or whatever. Then you have this personality thing where people don't understand why these characters are special, why the characters exist, and they take it and they do whatever they want with it. So that's masculinity and femininity. They turn men into impotent characters that can't stop anything, can't do anything. They're scared all the time. They're weak. And it's cool it's fine for a man to show fear, to show hesitation, to show surprise, to be overcome. But the part of being a hero, and it goes back to being subverting the concept of a hero, is that you find it still within yourself that even when you're beaten, that you overcome. Like when Batman got his back broken by Bane, he was waiting to heal back up. He's coming back after that man. I got to beat that man. I got to come back after him. You got to overcome. He's a mountain I got to climb. In comic books today, Batman would have gotten beaten up and spent like 10 issues crying about his hurt back. Like, no, that's not a hero. That's not what a man does. That's not what a man is. Men don't cry forever about a thing. Yes, certain things hurt, certain things, bother you, but you don't go on and on and on infinitum about it. So once they've gotten rid of pretty much your sexuality, then they turn their attention towards your skin color. So this is where they change characters' ideologies. So Storm, for years and years and years, Storm was born in Africa, raised in the United States. She's a creature of African origins, but she lives in the United States. She sees herself as a mutant. But in the hands of certain writers, Storm became a racist who was talking about mayonnaise shops in Marvel Comics, like, gentrifying or gentrified Harlem or something. She was talking about. It was in a Black Panther and the Crew, where Storm with this head wrap, like, cause she's Mama Africa now, she has this head wrap. I forget what year this was in. I think it might have been 2017, and she's talking about, I can just see the mayonnaise shops now in these gentrified Harlem neighborhoods. And you're just kind of like, what? That's not something Storm would say. Storm does not talk like that. People would not have liked Storm if she talked like that. You know? And that was number one to me. They did that with almost all of the black characters. Falcon, who was one of the black characters who became Captain America, his whole run as Captain America was basically, you guys think that I can't be Captain America because I'm black, but everybody thinks that there should be a Captain America that looks like them. It's like you turn these black characters into preachers. Like, they're not heroes. They're activists. All they do is sit around and talk about their goddamn skin color all day. Reginald Hudlin, what he did to Black Panther is Reginald Hudlin's Black Panther is in the movies. Uppity T'Challa, who all he does is talk about the superiority of the Wakandans and how the white man lived in caves and all this, almost Nation of Islam type shit. All that type of shit came from Reginald Hudlin, who was a TV writer, who ended up writing comic books, who ended up writing the Black Panther. And he wrote Black Panther to pretty much be the most badass African hero of all time. Now, some people smartly decided to understand that there's a difference between African and black in America, and they kept that barrier straight. But of course, the movies decided to tear that down, and now T'Challa has to be a black nationalist. He has to be a Pan-African. That's not what T'Challa is. Wakanda is a small African nation that's always trying to be invaded, not just by Europeans, but also by other Africans. Okay? So that was the point of Wakanda. Wakanda has never been conquered. Not only has never been conquered by Europeans, it has never been conquered, period. Even by other Africans. So they changed all of the black characters. They did it to the Mexican characters too, where all the Mexican characters all of a sudden illegal immigrants. You had America Chavez, who was an alien. All of a sudden she's Hispanic because her last name is Chavez, and all of a sudden she goes to a school of illegal immigrants, and it was just really weird. Like, they created a illegal immigrant named Blind Spot in the Daredevil comic book, and he's Chinese, and he was standing on this soapbox talking about, you don't know what it's like to be illegal. And Daredevil was like, yes, I understand, because this was SJW Daredevil. And, Blind Spot gets to talking about being an illegal and nobody cares about you because you're illegal. I'm an illegal Chinese, so I'm not even supposed to be here, and everybody treats me bad. And you had stories where Superman had to protect illegal immigrants from gun-toting white people who were going to shoot them just for being illegal immigrants. They were going to get shot and killed. So Superman had to protect illegal immigrants. It's absolutely ridiculous. And the final thing that they subverted is mostly the individual. So if you've been following my pattern, it goes from everything from outside of you to the very concept of you in general. And the number one way they've done this is by turning every book into a team book. The number one version of this is the Iron Man book, the Dan Slott Iron Man story, where essentially it became not Iron Man, Tony Stark, but Iron Man Enterprises, where it was a bunch of different people, where Tony was in the suit, yeah, but he wasn't creating everything himself. He wasn't allowed to be the hero all the time himself. It was a team effort, quote unquote. And it's that you didn't build that Barack Obama mentality where there is no single hero. There's always a team of heroes. It's another concept of you're not special. You're just one of many people. So that's why you can't have a concept of a core morality. You can't have core religion. You can't have a father. You can't have a single sexuality. You're not an individual. You belong to everything. You belong to everybody. Whatever you do is not because you did it. It's because other people helped you do it. And look, there is no great man in history. That's another thing where there is no great man. There is no destiny. There is no such thing as merit. There's no such thing as work ethic. There's no such thing as somebody being smarter than somebody else. Everybody is equally smart. Everybody is equally everything. And so that Iron Man book turned into absolute shit because there was just so many different characters in the book. Each one of them with a know-it-all type of mentality. Each one of them is in different control of a different thing, and it's like it didn't quite turn into Power Rangers, where where Iron Man was basically the Megazord, but it felt like it because it felt like Tony was completely not the focus of the story. They did the same thing with Captain America. They did that later, where Captain America's book ended up just becoming a book about him playing second fiddle to the Daughters of Liberty, which was some feminist group that supposedly existed longer than Captain America. What they really did to Captain America is absolutely embarrassing. But they shredded the individual. You're not allowed to be a person anymore. You're not allowed to think that you're special anymore. There's no cause for it. You're not special. You're just a guy. You're just nobody. Even though that these stories are supposed to be about special people. That's the point of us reading these stories, that we're supposed to be reading about special people. But we're not allowed to read about special people because, you might start thinking that you're special, and then you might get some weird idea that you don't serve the state. But once you've getting rid of the individual, now you start attacking the metaphysical society. You start attacking things like patriotism. And this is going to be the last thing I talk about because I've been talking long enough. Patriotism has been decimated in comic books. American patriotism. I'm not so sure about the patriotism of other countries. I haven't paid attention to it. But Superman no longer stands for truth, justice, and the American way. That's been all but deleted out of DC Comics. In fact, there was a debate over this a couple of weeks ago between Tom King, who had written some Superman comics, and Dean Cain, who was the actor who played Superman, I believe, in Lois and Clark. He's just said on Twitter, like, why doesn't Superman stand for truth, justice, and the American way anymore? And people just attacked him because they think he's a Trump supporter. And if you loving the country that you live in is horrible fascist stuff, you're not supposed to believe that. You're supposed to be a citizen of the world. You're supposed to be inclusive. And that's usually the word that they use to subvert everything, is they use diversity and inclusion. So Superman can't stand for truth, justice, and the American way anymore. Same reason why they can't, Spider-Man is a cop lover in the video game, so they didn't want you to play in the video game because Super Spider-Man loves the cops, and they want Miles Morales' origin changed because his dad was a police officer. They want all that stuff changed. But to stay on the subject of patriotism, not only do they delete truth, justice, and the American way from Superman, they also took it away from G.I. Joe. And I'm not sure if it's back yet. Now, I know there was a lot of backlash behind the G.I. Joe thing, but G.I. Joe from the 80s, the toy series, the cartoon that people loved, everything, it was G.I. Joe, the real American hero. That was the subtitle. And it was supposed to be like a fictional military unit called G.I. Joe that is special missions and everything like that. And they fight this fictional terrorist group called Cobra. And that was the franchise. And then the woke folks got hold of it and they decided to vandalize G.I. Joe. And what they did is they took black spray paint and they sprayed over a real American hero because they wanted G.I. Joe to be, quote unquote, inclusive. And then they didn't like the military, so it can no longer be a military system. It has to be, they're not allowed to have guns anymore. They had to have it was absolutely stupid what they did to G.I. Joe. But what they did to Captain America was fucking criminal. I mean, goddamn. See, I have to end on what they did to Captain America because it touched me almost personally because Captain America is one of my favorite superheroes. Is they took the preeminent superhero of the United States and they turned him into a Nazi. What did they do? They said that Captain America was always a Nazi sleeper agent who was really working with the Germans the whole time. And they had him murder his friends. He murdered Black Widow. He killed almost all of Las Vegas and Washington, D.C. He conquered the United States because they didn't like Donald Trump. And they figured, people who like Donald Trump probably like Captain America. So we're going to turn Captain America into Donald Trump, who destroys everything he touches, murders millions of people, and it was absolutely abhorrent. It was absolutely pathetic. It was horrifying what they did to Captain America. And it destroyed the franchise. If Chris Evans would not be playing Captain America in the movies, you would not be talking about Captain America at all right now. You know, the movies is what kept the franchise alive, because Chris Evans was so good at being Captain America on screen that people was able to ignore the absolute god-awful depiction of Captain America in the comic books. This is when they replaced Captain America with a black man. And this is right after that. I mean, well, during that, because it was absolutely retarded. Now, they tried to cover this up by saying that, an evil person put a spell on Captain America to make him think that he was a Nazi sleeper agent the whole time. But it's no. He threw one of his friends out of a helicopter and the friend died. It was horrible. Okay. They put basic Fox News sort of conservative talking points into the mouths of villains, of, basically hating immigrants, and they took your jobs, all that type of stuff, or they took your jobs. I know people might not understand the South Park reference, but there's a South Park reference where, people complain about, they took our jobs. And, that's a regular Republican talking point. They would put that into the mouths of the villains. Or in some instances, Captain America would be saying that, oh, they took your jobs. They are invading you. These Inhumans, all these illegals, they're invading your societies. And it's like, what? And he was cutting like these heel promos. And you're just like, what the fuck? That is not Captain America at all. And they absolutely ruined him. They put the Antifa A on top of Captain America's forehead. You know where the A is on Captain America's forehead? That's basically an Antifa Anarchy A now. And they've gotten rid of it since. They've gotten rid of the whole Nazi Captain America. Even though he's not dead, they just created a second version of Captain America that they continue to devalue. But it's just absolute nothing. Nothing matters. These people don't care about anything. Everything has to be subverted. Everything has to be taken away. That's why they took away Captain America, and they've been doing this for years now. It's been 5 or 6 years of this vandalism, but let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like this video, share, subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later.